Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. We have a wonderful guest joining us today, and we're going to be talking about ageism. So I'm so excited to have Corinne Aumen joining us. Corinne, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad you're here. And where are you calling in from, Corinne?
I live in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh, I love the Carolinas. Love it, love it. I lived in Charlotte for many years, and it's such a beautiful area. And you're probably having great warm weather now already.
We are. I mean, it's winter in the morning, and then by afternoon it's summer. So you dress in layers, and you peel off as the day goes on.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, thank you for being here all the way from Greensboro, North Carolina. We're excited to have you. And we'll take just a moment. I want to welcome all of our audience. Thank you for joining the Will Talk podcast. Really important to us to bring great speakers like Corinne to share her information with you. And hopefully you can walk away with something inspiring today. And let us know how we're doing. Give us a review, pop questions in. You can reach out to either one of us. We'll give some contact information at the end of the show, so you'll know where to reach out for additional questions. So Corinne, I'm going to share a little bit of your bio so our audience knows why you're on the show today. So Corinne is the founder of Choice Care Navigators, which is a company dedicated to helping families navigate the aging process. Corinne is dedicated to fostering personal growth, resilience, and authentic living at every age. Corinne's passion lies in reshaping how we perceive older adulthood, a vision she beautifully encapsulates in her groundbreaking book, Keenagers. I can't wait to hear more about this. She's on a mission to change the conversation around aging in a culture where many avoid thinking about older adulthood until the last minute. She urges us to embrace aging in a positive light. Her story is not just about her successes. It's a call for all of us to care about aging, dispelling myths, and embracing the beauty and potential of every stage of life. I love this so much. And, there's so many inspiring stories, which I can't wait to hear, more of your stories, Corinne. But so many people like having, stage or act 3, act 2, and creating, a whole new life at age 60, 70, and 80, which I love. So let's just kick off by what led you on this mission.
Sure. So I do run Choice Care Navigators, and we are a care management agency, which means we help families when they're trying to care for aging loved ones, figure out how that process works. Like, what are their options? What can they afford? Things like that. And when I started that business back in 2012, I really thought that I was going to be working with 50-year-olds caring for 70-year-old parents. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I am working usually with a 70-year-old child caring for a 90-year-old parent or older. I mean, it's my ideas about who was going to be my older adult client, and I'm putting that in quotes, were completely off base. And I have a background in this. I did a graduate program focusing on older adults, doing research with older adults. And so it really occurred to me that if I was so wrong about what older adulthood looked like and who my clients were going to be, if I was so wrong, then everybody else probably has the same misconceptions that I have. And we hear stories now and then about like super seniors, like somebody amazing doing something, crazy. And we think about those as kind of one-offs, right? That's the exception type person. And my point with the book and the interviews and things that I do in it are really that, no, it's more the rule these days than it is the exception. And our stereotypes about who is an older adult or what it means to grow older or what that's going to be like, our stereotypes have not kept up with our changing demographics and the length of our life and how long you can be healthy and active and doing purposeful things in the world. And so that's what inspired me to write the book, was the idea that not only do I need to change my mind and has been changed over the course of this work, but I need to get the message out to everybody else to say, we've got to really rethink how we are viewing this stage of life.
Yeah. Well, I love like everything you've said. I love on so many different fronts. I mean, you know, there is so much about how to care for individuals, right? And, you know, we also, to your point about, you know, society, we've created these rules, so to speak, right? You retire at 65 and then what? Right. And, you know, just from an affordability standpoint now, it's harder and harder to retire at that young age. And
Listen
so
to what you just said. It's hard to retire at that young
yes, no, I did.
of 65. But it's true. It's 100% true.
Yeah, no, it is. And you're right. And it is almost a mindset change, right? And to your point, we see individuals who are inspiring that, you know, like I have a really good friend who at 60 decided Act 2 was going to be real estate. And she's like, wins all these president awards. She'll be 80 this year. And she's like, okay, what's Act 3 going to be? Right. And that's so inspiring. And she, you know, walks 3 miles every day, rides her bike every day, like really active and engaging. And so I'm getting off topic a little bit, but I think it's such an inspiring story. And so Keenagers, they're Keeners. I'm assuming that was what prompted the title of your book. So tell us just a little bit about that and where people can find your book.
Sure. So the book is available on Amazon. It's also, it's probably not in your local bookstore, but it can be ordered and through your local bookstore as well. If you go in and ask for it, which I highly recommend that you do.
Of course.
That you can get it that way as well. But the word Keenager came from one of the people I interview in the book, a friend of mine. So when I was writing the book, I was really struggling with the words because we classify everybody 60 or 65 and older as an older adult, right? And we're talking about what can be a 30 or 40 year span of your life. And I was like, there's a really big difference between a 65-year-old and a 95-year-old. And we don't have words to explain those differences or to talk about them. In research, if you read academic papers, they talk about the young old, the middle old, and the old old, and nobody in real life likes those words. I mean, that doesn't resonate with people. And so I was really struggling with this, and a friend of mine and I were talking, and she talked to her mom, actually, and her mom goes, "Oh, we call ourselves Keenagers." And I was like, that sounds amazing. Let's go with that. But, you know, I will tell you, I get a lot of reaction to the word, to that title that I've used, and people either love it or they hate it. You know, so a lot of people really like it because it is a play on teenagers, and it kind of sounds like a happy word. And other people think, oh no, that's too frou-frou. It's, you know, you're trying to, somebody told me I was trying to, you know, look at old age through rose-colored glasses. And, you know, so people have real reactions to it. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's fun. And I think we need a positive word to associate with this time in life, because there are so many words that people don't like about it and don't want to be associated with, that I really wanted to try to find something that encapsulated the happiness and joy that can be found during this time of life.
Yeah. Well, I personally love it because I think, to your point, there's a lot of positive energy around Keenagers, right? Like I use the Keeners, right? We're Keeners. We want to look at what's next in life. It's not about rolling over, right? Like, so it is really about how do you fully embrace and keep life on your terms the way you want it. So, you know, in society, I mean, like whether it's social media, the media press, like there's a lot of verbiage and propaganda around ageism, and especially toward women. So what do you think is prompting these types of conversations?
Well, I think we're getting more, I'll say, foothold with the idea of ageism all the time, because we do have so many more people. I mean, if you just look at the Census Bureau data on demographics, we have 10,000, people turning 65 every day, and the oldest boomers are turning 75, starting to turn 75. And so we have the largest population of older adults we've ever had. Yeah. And they are healthier and more active than they've ever been. And so that has really, or is starting to bring our attention to ageism to the forefront for the first time. I will tell you though, I give talks on this all the time, and it is amazing to me the number of people that I talk to or who will come up to me after I give a talk about ageism and they go, I have never heard that word before.
Oh,
I did not know
really?
that. Yes. I never do a talk without defining it and talking to people about what it is and what it means and how you see it in everyday life. And it's like once we talk about it, they go, oh yeah, okay. But it's amazing how many people have really never given it any thought whatsoever. And it's actually a little bit scary because they just think that all of the things that they've heard about aging, mostly negative, they just assume that all that's true, that it's not a stereotype, that's just fact. And it's like, no, that's not the case. So I think having this generation of older adults that we have right now, the size of that group, and the fact that so many of them do want to keep working. Maybe they want to keep working, maybe they need to keep working financially, and that they do have so much still to give back and to be purposeful about in their lives is making people stop and go, well, why do we tell people that they're supposed to retire at 65? Why do we have these kind of expectations for, this age group and what should be happening? And so all of those things are coming together to bring ageism to the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you were just saying that, I was thinking about, like from a government perspective, we say 65, right? But then look at the people that we have in our Senate, in the Congress, even the people running for president, right? Like, I mean, they are way past the 65 years old. And what you were just talking about of having that purposeful life, I think that is important, because you see when people retire and they don't have that act 2 or act 3, what happens to them, right? And that's sad, because I mean, you can only play so much golf or pickleball or right? Yeah.
So there's actually some really good research about this out there that shows when people retire, they typically go through about an 18-month kind of honeymoon phase where they're, playing a lot of pickleball and golf and traveling and doing all these fun things. And then after that, they start to kind of go downhill, become depressed, because they don't have purpose in their life. And purpose is really, having a reason to get out of bed, feeling like the world needs you in some way is really essential to our existence. When you don't have that, if work was your big purpose and then it goes away and nobody needs you anywhere, then that really becomes scary and sad, because your social world shrinks, you're not interacting with as many people. It's bad for your brain because you're not being cognitively stimulated by talking to people or thinking about problems and solving things. So really, when we're thinking about retirement, because sometimes people will fuss at me too, and they'll say, oh, you just want everybody to work forever. And that is not it at all. But if you're going to retire, you're thinking about retirement, right now, what we mostly do is financial planning for retirement. And
that's true.
My argument is that you should be doing social and emotional and purpose planning for retirement, so that when you retire, you're thinking about just what you said. What's my next act? Am I going to start that business I've always thought about? Am I going to be helping raise my grandchildren? Am I going to be caregiving? Am I going to be doing whatever the thing is that gives your life meaning? It does not have to be paid work, but it can be if that's what gives you purpose. Yeah. But what you don't want is no reason to get out of bed on a Wednesday morning. You want to have a schedule and like things that you're going to want to do that make you excited, to get up every day and interact with people and do stuff, because just sitting around is not good for you at all.
No, and you're so right. Mentally, physically, emotionally, like when you were saying that, when that purpose is no longer there, like, there is you lose your identity, right? So often when we've tied it to our career, and physical health takes a real impact when you are sitting around and not having that purpose. So what also, when you think about from an ageism perspective, what is that impact on business overall or healthcare? Like, how is that playing out?
Well, so we'll start with the business piece. There are these kind of stereotypes about older workers, that like older workers cost too much, or that older workers need to retire so that younger people can get jobs, or that older workers just they can't learn new things, all kinds of stereotypes about older workers, which if you actually dig into any of that research, really none of that is true. When you think about older workers, you've got a plethora of knowledge and experience and communication and people skills that older adults have or older workers have that your younger workers aren't going to have. And so if your older worker retires, you lose all of that. And then you also have the cost of hiring and training and bringing up to speed the younger worker. The thing I always argue for is an intergenerational workforce. It's not that we want one over the other. It's that you really need all the different age perspectives in the room. Older workers don't necessarily cost more either, because a lot of older workers will work for less money if they can have a flexible schedule.
Exactly.
They can have more time to go be with the grandkids, or they only want to work a couple of days a week. They're not necessarily looking for the 40-hour week, work week with all the benefits and those kinds of things. So businesses really need to reevaluate how they look at older workers, because what you see is a lot of people end up retiring. They're either laid off and they can't find more work because people just write them off automatically when they figure out how old they are. And it's things like thinking, oh, well, they're just going to retire in another year anyway, so we don't want to invest with them. Or if a worker is still in a place of business, we start to see that the business itself stops giving them like job training or professional development. That stops in your 50s. They stop offering you that because the business is already thinking, oh, well, you're going to retire, so we don't want to continue to professionally develop you. And that shouldn't happen. That should be a conversation where the business is saying, hey, what are you thinking about your future? Are you thinking about retiring? If so, what does that look like? Is that going part-time? Is that quitting completely? Do you still want to do professional development? Do you want to go for that promotion? But businesses don't necessarily think that way. You just lose a lot of opportunities. The other thing that there's a ton of research on now is that companies, especially tech companies, are losing out on market share with the older adult population. Because again, we've got the most older adults we've ever had. They've got the most money that generation has ever had. And yet all the tech companies all they seem to develop that is aimed at older adults are healthcare type apps or services. And these are full people, right? They're individuals who have shopping needs and travel needs. And they do have healthcare needs, but that's not the only thing that they care about. But if you don't have anybody at your company from that age group who can say, hey, here's what we're interested in. If you only have 30-year-olds designing for 70-year-olds, they just think it's all the stereotypes and that's all that is needed. And you're missing out on huge opportunities for developing goods and services for this older adult group we have right now. So that's the business piece. The healthcare piece is when you go to the doctor as you get older, one of the things that tends to happen is they just kind of say everything is based on your age.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your knee hurts, and they go, well, you know, you're getting older. And the response to that should be, just in case anybody out there who has a knee that hurts, you know, if you've got one knee that hurts and your doctor says something like that, you go, well, I have this other knee that is also the same age and doesn't hurt.
I love that, Corinne.
So we figure out what's going on. But I mean, anytime I talk about this, like in a public forum, you know, I get case after case of people, you know, who say, yeah, that's exactly what my doctor said to me. Like, they weren't willing to investigate. They didn't want to run any tests, you know, and you really have to advocate for yourself to not have things just be kind of written off as age related. Maybe it is age related, but that doesn't mean it's not worth investigating to see if we could make it better. And that's not to poo-poo on doctors or healthcare professionals. They get very little or no geriatric training or training working specifically with older adults. There's almost no research on older adults, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, again, it's fairly new that we've had this many people living this long. Number two, older adults are considered like a special population in research. It's kind of like kids. So we treat them as separate. We don't really want to run a lot of research on them because we know they're maybe fragile or their health is different, that sort of thing. So there's less research. We don't have research about drug interactions when we've got older adults on a bunch of different medications. So there's just a whole ton of things that can and should be addressed, but right this minute have not been addressed. And so that, you know, your healthcare provider doesn't have a ton of information to go on other than just, oh, well, you're getting older, you know, in some of these situations. And that's our stereotypes. That's looking at it and going, well, this is your age, so we expect more aches and pains.
Yeah. Wow, you've said so many things. I want to go there first, though, because what you just described is what I've been living with my own mother, right? And, you know, to your point, doctors are not trained on geriatric care so much. And the first thing is, it is your age, right? And, you know, I remember saying to my mom's doctor, the last visit we had, I said to her, I get it. She is older, but this is not her. and this is she's not having quality of life because we put her on all these medications because your number is X that you're trying to get her to. And I said, why are you trying to get her to that number? She's never been that number, even when she was 19 years old. So you've hit on, I think, Corinne, some things that are super important. That advocacy, you know, and if you can't advocate for yourself, taking someone with you who can advocate, like, that's huge. And then the research you talk about, like, I never even thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right, because we're not going to spend the time, energy on a segment that has been small until now. And now we're kind of paying that price, right? Because we are living longer and healthier lives for the most part. But I also want to go back to the business case that you talked about, because when you talked about the tech not focusing on older generations, lots of reasons for that. But what struck me, and I wanted to talk about this a minute, is what's happening with AI, right? Because if we have 30-year-olds that are programming and making decisions that don't have those experiences that, you know, our older generations have, like, what are we creating in our society? Like, that scares me when I think about that, right? Because AI is here. We're in it already.
I haven't seen any particular articles about ageism in AI. I have seen articles about AI like being used to screen like resumes and things, and that because gender bias exists in our society, that the AI has learned gender bias and therefore is using that bias when it's like screening resumes, those kinds of things. So it would make sense that because we are also an ageist society, that would be something that the AI would learn and would start to implement in its screening tools or whatever it's being used for. But to be 100% clear, I haven't seen anything written up about that, about, what is AI learning. But, the AI is learning from what our society has put out there. And if our society has built-in bias already, then that is what the AI is learning, unless we are specifically trying to train it out of that. And I don't think we're really at that stage yet where we're like, oh, whoops, we don't want, unlearn that and let's retrain you to not be biased in some way.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's scary, right? Because it's accelerating so fast. And when you don't have that experience level, let's say, it's naturally going to take a particular lens versus really looking at things in totality. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. So what are some things, Corinne, that we can do to, better prepare, how to navigate these complexities? Because it is coming at us in all sorts of different ways. And so how do we ensure that we're well cared for as we continue to age and go through this acceleration?
So I think one of the biggest things is just being aware that ageism exists, right? And being aware of our own bias, because we have all grown up, or, we are surrounded by this ageist society all the time, right? And the question comes up sometimes, is everybody biased? And the answer is yes, we are, because we have been surrounded by this. And there's some, if you're really curious, like if you really want to know, there's some online like quizzes you can do, like Am I Ageist? And there's one that Harvard has that's online, an implicit test. And you, and we just are. This is not something to beat yourself up about, because again, it's not your fault that this exists in you, but it is something to be aware of, because Dr. Becca Levy up at the Yale School of Public Health has done a lot of research on ageism, and one of her most profound findings, I think, is that people who have positive views about their aging live on average 7.5 years longer than people who have negative views about aging. So having that positive outlook, and you can imagine how that's going to impact your life, right? Like if I'm looking at my growing older in a positive way, then I'm going to do things to plan ahead, plan financially, plan socially, plan for my health, take care of myself, go to the doctor, eat better, because I'm looking forward to it, versus if I have a very negative view where I'm like, well, it's just all downhill from here, and of course my knee hurts, getting older sucks, and that kind of thing. So how you are viewing both yourself, because there's internalized ageism, right, when we're kind of beating ourselves up about something about our age, and then how you are interacting with other people. What are you saying or doing with other people that may be promoting ageism? I think it's very common in our society to, you have a little memory lapse, and I look at you and I go, oh, you're just having a senior moment, haha, right? And I'm kind of joking, I'm kind of playing it off, but that's sending a very clear message about your age and about what I'm expecting to happen to you as you get older. And so really starting to think about these words that come out of our mouth all the time. And again, you don't beat yourself up about it, just be aware and try to change little things where you can to go, oh, I'm not going to say that anymore. Or, and then reading about ageism and educating yourself and other people as much as you can. I will tell you a quick anecdote. My poor kids, my youngest daughter, we went to see Bruce Springsteen last year, and at the end of the show, Bruce rips open his shirt, and Bruce is in really good shape. He's in his 70s. And we're driving home afterwards, and my 12-year-old at the time said, oh, he shouldn't have taken his shirt off. He's a dirty old man.
Oh, interesting.
And with me as her mother, I'm like, wait, where did that come from? Who has told you that, number one, Bruce Springsteen is a dirty old man, that he shouldn't be taking his shirt off, all these things? And she just was like, well, just men that age just shouldn't do that. I mean, they just shouldn't. And so that's why I'm saying don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
You know, nobody has specifically told her that, but yet she has learned it by the age of 12 that there is this stereotype of, quote, dirty old men. And I am trying to educate her. But, you know, we all just have to kind of be aware that we are surrounded by this all the time. And when we hear it, you know, try to question it. Yeah. Try to go, where did that come from? Yeah. Why are we saying stuff like that?
Well, Corinne, I love what you just shared there, because as you were saying that, I was thinking about my mom and my friend, right? And they're a year apart in age. My mom's 81, my girlfriend's 80. And it's interesting because when you were talking about the positive outlook, the negative outlook, like my friend just joined a women's club that I belong to for the social aspect, right? And she's still an active real estate agent, just won President's Club for the year, and she's 80 this year, right? But her attitude is, yeah, I'm gonna be here till I'm probably 100 years old or longer, and here's all the things that I wanna do. Where my mom she's had some health issues, and she doesn't get to do the activities that because she built houses forever and has not been able to do that since COVID. And so, but you can see the difference, right? And I keep saying to my mom, teach a class, do something, right? Like your expertise, like so many people want to know how to do home decorating, but also building. And you could do a class on how to be your own contractor, right? What are the things to look for? Like this gives you purpose. Because I think, you know, overall, what I've heard you say today is that importance of educating yourself, talking about it in a very positive, forward way, but being very intentional with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be very clear. Everybody I interview in my book, they all have health problems. There is no one that I interview as a teenager who has perfect health, who's had nothing go wrong. I mean, they've had all kinds of things happen in their lives, but they are living with purpose and still getting joy despite that. It's not, I think sometimes people think I'm talking about people who just have perfect health and nothing's gone wrong. And what if you have health problems? We are incredibly resilient, and that does not change as we get older. And to your point with your mom, if she can't do the exact same thing she was doing before, that's fine. Find something else that gives you purpose and joy and do that. It does not have to be the same thing that you did when you were younger. I have another friend who had a different job, and she went back to school and got her therapist degree specifically because she said, well, therapy is something I can do and just sit in a chair until I'm 102.
I love it.
That's fair. I like it. So, you know, that we just have to understand that, yeah, things are going to change, but that doesn't mean that your life is awful or over or, you know, all the things we just kind of poo-poo about getting older. It just means you're going to go on a slightly different adventure than you were on earlier.
Oh, I love that.
The second act, the third act. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's such a great way to, you know, to even view it, that what's the next adventure, right? And you can shape that however you want to shape it. Right. Very powerful. So, Corinne, I am cognizant of our time. So share with our audience, how do they find you? You've shared some great research that happens when it comes to ageism, but if they have more questions, how and where do they find you?
Sure. So I have a website, CorinneAumen.com, and so they can look me up there. You can go there to buy the book as well. You can contact me through that website. My care management business is NavigateSeniorCare.com. You can also find me there if you want to reach out by phone. You can just reach out through the business number there. But yeah, those are probably the best ways. I'm on all the social media platforms too. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I don't actually make any videos, so that's probably not the place to find me. I keep thinking I should start making them, but I just haven't, and so that's where we're at.
Well, I'm with you on that, Corinne. I haven't done the TikTok jump yet either, but you know what? Some of the things you're talking about, like, I mean, it's such a broad audience. I think that it could be really great. And even just taking snippets from Keenagers, right? Like it'd be a great way to bring people forward in things that we say, breaking some of those stereotypes that we've talked about today. And again, her book is called Keenagers, Keenagers. So you can find that on Amazon. You can find it on Corinne's website. So several ways. So any last parting comments that you would like to share with our audience before we wrap up here today?
No, I think this has been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you, and super grateful for the work that you're doing. And navigating as we age is not easy, because there is all kinds of things going through our minds. But I love the intention that you've put out with your not just your book, but the work that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
And just to our audience, we thank you for listening in today. If you are interested in learning more about what guests are upcoming on our podcast, you can certainly go on to wilempowered, that's 1L, wilempowered.com, and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We keep it short and sweet, but it gives you an insight as to who's going to be joining us as a guest and what topics we're going to be talking about. And also usually something inspirational that we like to share with you for that month. So, again, join us at wilempowered.com and sign up for our monthly newsletter. So, Corinne, thank you again. And our audience, thank you for being here. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Will Talk podcast. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.